Hello, everyone. It's me. Welcome to all my new subscribers. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming, listening. Um, I hope everybody's doing good. I'm doing good. As you know, my voice gets hoarse when it gets later at night. I don't know if it's because it gets tired, but I've had a hoarse voice for years, and I'm sorry. And I have to clear my throat because it drives me crazy. So forgive me for that. Anyways, I haven't heard much in the Summer Wells case. Uh, I know a lot of people want to talk about others that could be involved, like Don Sherfy, like this one could be connected to that one, or this, or Jody Sue, or Andy, or blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to tell you something right now. The professionals, the ex-police officers, ex-FBI, ex-forensic statement analysis guys, a lot of people truly believe that Don and Candace did this. And not only did they do this, but they've been lying this whole time. And so, I know a lot of people want to really come up with all these theories, but I really truly think it's that simple. It's that simple that her parents did this. And there's many signs, many clues, and a lot of people do not want to look at it. Okay? They don't want to look at the parents. They want to look at everybody else. But it's the parents. I'm telling you, and I could put money on this case that it's the parents who did this to their little girl. I'm sorry to say it. Summer Wells has been missing since last year, June 15th. She hasn't been found. We're still trying to find her. She's missing from Rogersville, Tennessee. So if you know anything about Summer Wells, she's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed. She's 6 years old now. Please call 1-800-TBI-5. So anyways, there's not much new. There's just really nothing going on except for I'm seeing a lot of YouTube videos where people are just connecting this one and trying to connect that one. But whatever, if that's your thing, you go ahead. But that's not my thing because with all the signs and all the things that point to Don and Candace's guilt, there's no way you're going to tell me any different. But I thought it would be good for you, if you haven't seen this or heard this, for us to go through just some of Peter Hyatt's statement analysis. He worked for I don't know if it's the FBI, I think it is, and he did forensic analysis of crimes and people. So I think he knows what he's talking about. So I'd like you to hear this. And I'm going to stop it periodically so I can talk to you, okay? So here we go. This is Peter Hyatt. I know you can't see him very good, okay? Because I'm far away. But this is Peter Hyatt. And right here, he is reading the letter. Well, he's reading the words that Don Wells told the news reporter, and then he's going to go through what Don said to Chris McDonough. So I'm just going to let you hear this, and we're going to stop and talk about it, okay? Okay, hold on.
Causes a sense of conflict. In other words, my opinion is going to be buffeted by the opinions of others. So as I'm looking at a particular statement, as I'm looking at a particular word, I'm going to get pushback. I'm going to be challenged on it. People from different perspectives are going to have different opinions on it. And I think that's not simply helpful, but it really is essential. And that's where the greatest learning comes from as you're working with professionals with all different backgrounds, from the obvious in law enforcement investigation, some federal, some state, some private, also within business, social sciences. There are many different backgrounds, and they bring those backgrounds to the table looking to gain to the truth. We all follow the same principles, and the principles lead to a very high success rate. It's not always perfect, but the goal is always to strive for 100% accuracy. Some of the problems we encounter will look like this. This person is deceptive. However, is the person deceptive about this particular allegation, or might there be attendant crimes? This was a lesson I learned years ago, where a little girl went missing and the father was deceptive about the little girl going missing. He did not kill her, but he was under the influence and passed out and unable to supervise her, and she got out on her own and was killed. So there's an example where I concluded deception indicated, but it wasn't accurate where that deception was located or why the deception was there. It was evident that he was deceptive, but not about the particular allegation. It's also challenging with journalists editing. It can be very difficult. There are certain questions that just need to be asked when a child goes missing. Do you know where your child is? It may seem difficult for some journalists because they're afraid to lose the interview, but the person, for example, who did not do it, who has no involvement or no guilty knowledge of what happened to the child, is glad to have that cleared off. Remember, many years ago, John Walsh used to say to parents, take the polygraph. Take the polygraph immediately. Be cleared so police can move on quickly to find your child. Great advice. Every so often, and it is rare, but every so often someone is falsely accused.
I don't believe that Don and Candace passed their polygraphs. I really don't, because Candace hers was messed up. And then she had to take it again, and Don told her not to take it. So I don't think either one of them passed their polygraphs. They might have told the news that, whatever, who knows. Maybe the sheriff told them that, but I don't think they did. But okay, let's just keep going.
And that can cause quite a delay and quite a lot of heartache, additional heartache. But it's best not to be overly sensitive, because parents who have a child missing, their priority is the child missing, not their reputation. That was not the case, for example, in...
Listen. Their priority is a parent with a missing child. Their priority is the missing child, not self-preservation, not their reputation. And we have seen Don and Candace through this whole thing worried about their reputation and what other people are saying about them. Okay, here we go.
Some of the ones that we've covered, including the disappearance of Madeline McCann, their priority was self and self-preservation. It wasn't appealing to a kidnapper, describing and owning the language of a kidnapping, nor reaching out for her. So this is a strange case that I think you'll appreciate some of the feedback from the team that I'm going to bring forward here, and hopefully some can join us in. See if I can get them in. Key of this was pushback. So the first statement I'm going to look at, pulling up here, begins with, well, sir, I was at work, so that from what my wife has told me and stuff, her and her mother in summer were planting flowers by her grandma's trailer which is about 20 feet from the house there, real close to the house. And Summers all of a sudden said, "Mom, I want to go in the house." So she said, "Fine." And her brothers were in there watching YouTube, and she watched her walk in the door and went in there. And then she went in there, and her brother said that she's going to go downstairs and play with her toys. So she went downstairs, and then her mom come in and says, "Where's Summer?" Well, she's downstairs playing with her toys, and she had to holler for, and there was no answer, so she went downstairs, etc., etc. So the first thing we notice about this is that he wasn't there to make this account. He's giving an account from what someone else told him. That puts it under a classification of unreliable. We are notoriously unreliable when quoting others. And so for that reason, in terms of analyzing, we have to keep in mind that we're looking at an unreliable statement. He is relating information from someone else. The difficulty we run into with that is attempting to understand what is his perspective on this. There are some questions we can answer, and the most important one would be this: does he believe his wife's account on what happened? Does he entertain doubt? Does he stand strongly behind her? And the length of his description before you there, the length of his description, talking to the reporter, is something unusual when you're relating the words of someone else. What we do is we begin with the presumption of innocence, not
I just need to stop it here and say that I think it's very interesting, don't you? That, just as a reminder, that Don Wells is an unreliable witness in this situation because he was not home, he claims. And he's taken a secondhand story from Candace. So he can't really be relied on. And he has his own opinion, like he said. And now he's saying there's quite a bit of detail in here. That's quite a bit for just repeating someone else's story, because it is a story. So here we go.
a moral stance, but as a principle statement analysis. So we're going to always believe what the subject, the speaker, tells us, unless he talks us out of that position. And in such, we ask ourselves, what would I say? What would you say if you were at work and got a phone call and your 5-year-old girl was missing? What would you say? That's your little girl, that's your biological daughter, and she's missing. How long would you stay on the phone? You probably would ask some questions of your wife, the mother, biological mother, and seek to learn, wait, what do you mean she's missing? And where did she go? Where did you last see her? Okay, hang up with me and call 911 right now. That sort of thing. It wouldn't take long. So when a reporter says, what happened? I was at work, my wife called me and she said my daughter was missing. That would suffice. The reporter obviously wants more detail. And as we've seen thus far, Don and Candace Wells have been more than willing to talk to anyone and everyone. In fact, a post that's reported to be from the family, a blog, came up recently where they show concern over rumors about them, and they're still there and that sort of thing. And most parents are thinking to themselves, who cares? What's Summer going through? What are you doing to find Summer?
That's right.
Where is she? Do you know where she is? They show concern for themselves. So what we're going to do is look at his statement under the context of unreliable, because he's reporting what someone else has told him.
Yeah.
As we go through that, Are we able to gain an opinion on whether or not he has confidence in her words? Does he believe her? Does he embellish? Does he add to? And specifically for this statement here, is there a change within the statement itself due to its length? And the second part of this, and neither will be terribly long, is a phone interview, the transcripts that he did with Chris from the interview room. They're very important and relevant regarding the possibility of sexual abuse. So we're looking for that within language. So we're going to begin here. He starts off with well, which is a pause to think, with something that we're not terribly expecting. My wife called me, my daughter's missing. We note then that he calls the reporter sir. That is respectful, which is understandable in this particular case. If a reporter is going to carry the message, not only to Summer, but perhaps to the kidnappers, if that's what's happened to her, we want to maintain a respectful distance and be grateful for media getting it out there. What we do with that, besides the fact that we're a little concerned about the need to pause to even think about what to say here, is we're going to look at if sir changes at all. If sir changes at all. Now, if you've seen my video on the mother, you'll note that I had concluded that the mother's language showed that neglect. Neglect is what happened to Summer, one way or another. Now, I don't know, and I concluded on the video with what I had to work with. I don't know whether or not she was involved directly or indirectly, but in the very least, it's indirect. The mothers, and this is how that works, the mothers need to portray herself as someone that is hyper-vigilant on a day where no vigilance, because it's supposed to be a day like no other, a day like every other, where no vigilance is necessary. That portrayal is very common in the language of mothers who have been indicated in child abuse cases, particularly for neglect. And that often has to do with substance abuse. Some of you will say, well, substance abuse is obvious in this case. And what I'm looking for, what I'm limiting myself to in that video was her language. Yes, I did see that the work that Chris did in terms of the house, the disheveled, the mess, the unsanitary conditions, those are typical signs of neglect. And neglect and substance abuse are close cousins. Remember, neglect is probably the easiest of all the elements of child abuse because it requires doing nothing or little effort. What we also look for is, in the language of addiction, is manipulation. The language of addiction is in two distinct categories. One is the language of addiction itself, an active addiction, and the other is the language of recovery, which is very different, starkly different. And I think no training was necessary for people to conclude there are substance abuse issues in this family. And that was obvious, but it's also in the language as well. So we're a little bit on alert, knowing these things, with what Don says, the father, for manipulation. For manipulation. It shouldn't be necessary. We presume that he had nothing to do with his daughter's disappearance. He was at work. There may be that the trauma of a life that he's had weighed in, which leads me to another point. You saw the behavioral panel on their work.
Okay, I just got to move this up here, okay? Just a little bit. Otherwise, it would take too long.
Language analysis, it was very impressive.
Okay.
Notice there is a halt or stutter on the I there, and you'll see it other places. It is an indication of stress. stress about being present for the words here specifically. I was at work. Now, is this his priority or is it necessary? Now, if it's unnecessary language, we're looking at some issues here. But to relate a phone call, you have to tell us the setting of the phone call. So what we're going to do is say this priority of being at work, this opening sentence about being at work is necessary to explain why the news came from his wife. So I hope that makes sense to everyone, and you can always send me questions later on that. But right now, instead of calling this a priority like an alibi building, we're going to set it aside because it's contextually appropriate. And we'll see if that remains or not. I was at work, so from what my wife has told me, so he doesn't say what my wife told me, but from what? And so we wonder if that might be the beginning of casting a little bit of doubt or a little bit of shade upon what his wife says. And it could very well be, but at any given time, we're willing to let it pass. So from what she told me, not what she told me, but from what? So I'm going to be gleaning, which may mean he can enter into his own language, and that's what we're looking for. From what my wife has told me and stuff, so now we know there's more information that we'd like to learn about, especially if you're an interviewer. There's more things out there that you want to know. Then he uses the expression, this is something we all use, and it's not something that's nefarious by itself. Is an indication that the subject, the speaker, has an awareness at this point of his audience. And the audience could be for him the reporter and or the camera. It likely is both. But so what we do with that habit of speech is we notice what topics cause it to enter, and perhaps what topics do not cause it to enter. I'll use it when I'm speaking if I get a little nervous in front of an audience or a little bit self-conscious for whatever reason. If it's a difficult topic that I'm trying to deliver, something that perhaps goes against principle that is unusual, I may use it then. And I'm aware of it. And her mother and Summer were planting flowers by her grandma's trailer, which is about, 20 feet. So I have again, and I'm looking at this as being a possible sensitive point here. I have stuff I don't know, and I don't know how far a house is from the trailer unless he tells me. So I'm concerned about this account and why it's causing him to have this extra words added. 20 feet from the house there, real close to the house. So now I'm concerned, going back to her account, about him being aware of neglect. This is a normal day, it's supposed to be, and she's 5. 20 feet is about the size of a living room. It's a short distance. And Summers, all of a sudden, said, "Mom, I want to go in the house." Now, I don't know if these are his words or these are her words. This is why we set it aside as unreliable, and then from there, we can still look to glean information. But unreliable means we cannot draw a conclusion about whether he's telling the truth or not because he's using someone else's language, allegedly. Now, picture, this is a normal summer day. There's nothing extraordinary about it. A 5-year-old saying, "I want to go in the house," doesn't sound like something that would warrant the language all of a sudden, as if something unexpected happened. So whether this is coming from him as he's editorializing what she said, or if he's quoting her, something is amiss.
Yes. He's making sure that he is saying she was only 20 feet from the house, right? So, right under our nose.
Now we talk about in analysis the normal factor. The normal factor is when there is a portrayal in a statement where someone tries to normalize an event. And this is something that you learn very early on in life. So if I had a group of children and I opened up a book and I started off by saying, once upon a time, on a day like every other day, they would lean up and know something special, something unique, something different is about to happen. My need to portray it as a normal knows that I'm here for a story and something's about to happen. It's exciting to them. This is along the same vein. There would be nothing that would be sudden about a 5-year-old saying, I want to go in the house.
No.
It would not be a memorable event. It would not be an event of hormonal consequence.
No.
Something that causes your adrenaline to go. So someone is editorializing. Is it him or is it a repetition from what she said? Either way, it's not good, and that's why I haven't read. Said, Mom, I want to go in the house. So she said, fine, and her brothers were in there watching TV, so she watched her walk in the door. Now, he either got this from her, or he's bringing it into himself, but if a normal day, a nice summer day, in a property that is marvelously private, with all the acres around them, would anything need to be sudden and unexpected to say for a 5-year-old to say go in the house? And would there be a need for the mother to then do eyes on supervision, following her right into the house?
No.
What he's doing here is he's confirming for me the analysis of Candace's statement that neglect is part of this case. Summer is missing, neglect is part of this case. This is a signal of him either acknowledging her neglect or repeating it. Went in there, and then she went in there, so we have an unnecessary emphasis, and her brother said she's going to go downstairs and play with her toys. We don't know when actually that was said. It doesn't seem to fit very well. So she went downstairs, and then Mom come in. So looking at a present tense verb, come in. And I'd like to know, is that a regional expression? Is that the way he normally speaks? What's his baseline of that? Or is there something more there? And says, present tense, where's Summer? Well, she's downstairs playing with her toys. We don't know who this is ascribed to. If you'd like to interpret it, which I don't, you can say it was the boys, the brothers. And there was, within the language of the mother, there was the need to cast blame on anyone but herself, which is also part of the language of addiction. There's always someone else to blame, whether it is the boys, whether it is Don, whether it is the universe conspiring against me. We see that in the language of active addiction, where personal responsibility is far removed.
And we know because we've seen Don blame everyone from Candace to his boys to Summer, even Summer, yes. He blamed Chris McDonough. He blamed all the YouTubers. He blamed every single person. He took no responsibility, and neither did Candace. But I'm going to tell you something about this story right here. This, what happened to Summer, this story right here, the planting the flowers, all these things right here. This is a bunch of bull crap. This never happened. Not one single thing. this did not happen. But they want you to believe that. And that's why they are repeating the story like pigeons, Don and Candace and Grandis. They're repeating the story like pigeons. Just want you to hear this other part, and we'll move along.
That's why we don't like when someone says, I take responsibility for that.
Hold on. Oh.
And it shows a need to explain why she went downstairs. We wouldn't need that explanation. But he has need to explain it, and oftentimes it is a way of preempting the question, so why did she go downstairs? That's not a question we would ask. She was nowhere to be found. She went out the basement door. It was unlocked.
It's unlocked.
The door was unlocked. But she's never left there, and she might be on the other side of the house, and I better tell you why, before you ask me, why she might be on the other side of the house. Because I went out there before and called for her. She'd come out from behind the house. And let me tell you the reason why she would do that before you ask me. So here you can see I'm marking up the text there.
Because she just has to be
using the
outside.
color blue. This should call
Summer's
your eyes
fall.
to three of these very close together. This is a strong signal of deliberately withholding information. So the question for us then is Don withholding this information?
Yeah.
Or is he this
both
good?
Of them.
The length of this good at repeating what someone told him with all these details. Now,
you know why? Because Don told Candace the story.
I don't think that Candace told him about himself.
No.
He would do. Because she just has to be outside. She's an outdoor type of person. But she was gone, buddy. She was gone. And Sir is now buddy. Remember, he began off with the polite, respectful sir. Now we have the casual buddy. So what we ask is, what changed in his mind? That reporter from sir to buddy. And what we look for, we ask questions of it, but what we look for is to find the answer in here, between buddy and sir. What's changed? What's happened? What is he explaining? And he's giving a lot of detail that's difficult for us to consider that it all came from Candace.
That's right.
He appears to be going down, in progression at least, from starting off what she told me to his own editorializing.
Yep.
And giving him an opinion. But he's still supposed to be in the account. Something has changed. It appears here he's withholding information. And buddy, that could be a friendly term, but it's informal, may be a signal of manipulation by ingratiation. I want this reporter to like me now.
You know, Don is very manipulative, Don Wells. He sits there and he tries to be a smooth operator and convince people, yeah, buddy. He wants to be your best friend. That's the kind of guy he is. So yeah, that's a part of his alcoholism because, they try to deny, they try to manipulate, they lie, they blame others.
Remember, those that are in addiction survive by their wits. They survive by their ability to manipulate others. And this appears to be the case in this family. And we can talk about this another time of a person. There's many other things here that we could go into, but time is not a lot permitting for that. And my wife called me.
Listen.
She's gone, buddy. And my wife.
He said that when they talked about the door that he had to repetitiously go over and over it again. Okay, so I want you to go, if you can, go watch this whole video because it's so interesting, and just how he points out how he can figure things out. But I wanted to go to his interview with Chris, so here we go. No.
Because I was freaking out.
No, that's not it. Let's go. Okay.
A little bit in terms of size. So it's really legible for everyone. And this one is, there's the link for Chris's interview. This one is a phone interview between Chris and Don and Candace. And it's revelatory. Now, I'd like you to think about what I just said about the doors, for example, as we look through this.
So we missed it. I just must have missed it about the doors. So let's just back it up a little bit.
And there it is. Got it. Okay. And let me just bring this up a little bit in terms of size.
Well, we already said that, so I didn't go back far enough. Whatever. Okay.
And this one is, and there's the link for Chris's interview. This one is a phone interview between Chris and Don and Candace. And it's revelatory. Now, I'd like you to think about what I just said about the doors, for example, as we look through this.
He said the doors are a sign of sexual abuse.
Now, I haven't heard this audibly, and what we do with statement analysis is we initially ignore voice inflection, knowing full well that voice inflection, as part of body language analysis, examining evidence, all part of a larger case and a larger understanding, voice inflection can change a meaning. Whatever word that may be emphasized can bring meaning into question. But here we don't have it, and you'll be able to actually see within the language itself. And it just picks up here. The language of addiction, we find manipulation, very strong point. We find manipulation, the subject wants something, whether it is to be believed or wants something tangible. The next step we often find is the subject will be a victim. The subject will portray himself as a victim.
He's always a victim.
Victim of you, victim of me, the victim of parents, the victim of their children. They're not only willing to cast blame on anyone. This is like someone that is involved in child pornography and might blame their own kid. Well, my son had my phone or something like that. People are often shocked by that. But in active addiction, people will blame anyone to get the blame away from themselves. And so we saw that, I think, with Candace's statement with her sons, to blame them. Well, they blame others. They often attack others. And in between all this, they become philosophers. And so and this is from a very
sounds like Don.
But I think addiction gives a false filling of that void to or temporary comfort that just never lasts. It is as one sheriff in Arizona said.
I gotta move it up a little bit here because
Don wanted to lecture on that while his daughter was missing. If your daughter was missing, you may not even know what day it is from the lack of sleep. I'm not sure that's something you'd want to debate anyone over. But that need to lecture others and then eventually lead to attack becomes evident, and it becomes evident here. So Don said, and I'm not sure where this picks up, they're willing to help me sort of find my daughter now. Now, I'm not sure who he's talking about, whether it's Texas Sector Search, volunteers, or law enforcement, but everyone's been searching from the beginning. They probably don't want to help me now. They're going back to think that I did it because of what you did. You lied on me, man. So this we like to jump and say, there's an embedded admission or an embedded confession. It's not always the case. What we look for is someone whose origin of the words is self.
I think Don
Here,
did it. I think that is.
It to what someone did. And he's blaming Chris.
Uh-huh.
You lied on me, man. And Chris, I think he handled this really well. I don't imagine it would be very easy to ruffle his feathers, given his background. What did I lie about? Because I told you the truth and you twisted it all, that's lying. And this is a manipulative response. Okay, tell me what I lied about. He agrees with him, that's disarming, but he seeks accountability. Tell me what I lied about. Don said, your opinion. Chris isn't going there. Chris says, tell me what I lied about. Everything. I told you that, like, for one, that me and my stepsister had something going on when we was younger, and you put on there that it was me and her daughter, which, by the way, sounds like a mistake, not a lie, correct? Anyone know the ages of this accusation? Anyone in the chat? I believe he's talking about a young child here. And this is insight. This is terrible insight. Good, Adam has it. He was 12. She was 5. So abouts. He used the word we. Me and my stepsister had something going on. And you said it was me and her daughter. You got the wrong person, so therefore you lied about everything. You twisted it. So, if you want to know what Summer's life was like, besides what you saw in video, listen to the language. Believe him. His perception of reality was not only that there was unity between him at 12 or so and her at 5, but they had something going on. often the public is shocked, and rightfully so, when they hear the language of a predator or of a molester. And molesters do say things about children like that she was asking for it. She was being provocative. They sexualize a child. This is not age disparity. This is not sophistication disparity. This is a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old. He's linking them together in unity, and he's saying they had something going on. That's his language. Then, instead of saying, I didn't molest my 5-year-old stepsister or niece or wherever she was, he attacks, and you put it on there that was me, her daughter. That's a tangent. Before he goes off to change the topic in an accusation, he gives you his verbalized perception of reality. This reminds me of some of the language that Michael Jackson used with all his victims. Chris says no. Don says, are you crazy? Chris says, no, I didn't. Chris gives a reliable denial. And you don't want to buy into this, taking off away from molestation over to who the victim was. Candace said, yeah, you did. I said, it's your stepsister. If you look at the form of that sentence, past tense, the information, no qualification, no additional words, nothing. It is very likely to be reliable. Chris is telling the truth. I guess my niece, or whatever she's supposed to be to me, one that says I raped her, is 100% lies. So now I'm moving away from stepsister to rape. And he uses a numeric, which is like an unnecessary attempt to persuade, unless it's necessary, and here it's not. Either did or didn't. The one that says, I raped her. So now this is a different female, different victim. The first one was a child, this one we don't know yet about age. Chris said, Trish never said you raped her. And this would be to him, to Chris. Well, it says on her video, what does that have to do with Chris? If she said it on her video, this is the language of addiction. It becomes meshed everywhere. Everyone is against me. The world is against me. My pet is against me. The universe is against me. God is against me. It becomes the ultimate victim. And from that position, it's very difficult to make any changes in life. And Chris rightfully says, well, that's her video. That's not mine. He acknowledges that. And Chris asks, what does Trish's statement have to do with me? You put her statement on your show, on your podcast, because I watched her statement and I wanted people just like you to know the truth. Candace laughs. Don't forget, during this phone call, Summer's missing.
Yep.
Don says, and she's lying. And Candace then accuses him also, and obviously with the same type of pattern of attack, deceive, manipulate, use tangents. Don says, and you see, that's the thing, you don't know whether she's telling the truth or I'm telling the truth. I know who's telling the truth. So here is a strong statement, except it comes on the heels of Candace's. Candace says you don't care about the truth. Not that you don't know the truth, but you don't care about it. And she said, well, on its face, that's absurd. And watch what Don does. These two work well together. And you see, that's the thing. You don't know whether she's telling the truth or I'm telling the truth. he allows for the possibility that it's not him, but she that's telling the truth. He doesn't say, I'm telling the truth, but I know who's telling the truth, and I believe him. Chris says, right. He keeps his words to a minimum.
Okay, we gotta go move along here because it's. I recommend that you please go watch this video.
He has a genuine faith, a new faith, in spite of all the troubles in life, or not. But I can tell you he was using talking points in manipulative ways while his daughter was missing. And now he's telling you this is his perception after all these decades. So the question is, does he pose a risk to children? And if this is all I had to go on, I would say yes. So Chris asked him kind of a natural question. Chris may have known the answer, I don't know. How old were you? How old were you? It's a really simple question. You know what? She initiated all this. I'm going to tell you that right now. She initiated it, yes. So what has he done? Number one, he has avoided the question. So now the question is itself sensitive to him, his age. Don't forget that we that he used. Putting him into unity with the victim. Now he's blaming someone else. So he avoids the question, doesn't want to answer it, and he's blaming the victim for initiating it. Now, is he blaming the 5-year-old or is he blaming his niece, a 5-year-old stepsister or niece? I don't know at this point, but he's blaming the victim. He's not denying it took place, but he's blaming by saying, who started it? Who initiated it? And I'm going to tell you that right now. She initiated it, yes. So initiated is repeated twice. I'm going to tell you, and yes means emphasis of 4 times. And you went along with it? Yeah, I was a kid brother. Now, what would that suggest to you? I was a kid brother. I was younger. And how old were you?
See how he tries to get away with this.
The avoidance of the question is an old salt. I was a kid. I didn't know no better. But you do have to tell us that she initiated it? The 5-year-old? How old was she? I was still a kid. He doesn't want to give her age. I guess I was a little bit older than her. How much? I can't remember. The number one use of lying in court is I can't remember. I was a kid. How many years difference? Remember?
He can't.
Great question.
There
was a little bit of difference there.
So we're going to go a little bit farther.
Shaved head.
Hold on. I'm just going to give you his conclusion here.
Now, what did Chris do? If you think about it, Chris actually highlighted the case here for
He had a little bit of difficulties with this.
Nancy Grace, back other times, others in media highlighting the plight of our missing child.
They don't want nobody.
Instead, he's on the attack.
Yep.
He's on the attack. So in conclusion, and I'll just see if there's any questions I can answer there. In conclusion, neglect is part of this case. Which may indicate an untended death, or inviting in of drug sales. When you invite drug sales into your home, you're inviting danger. You're putting your children in jeopardy, or something more nefarious. In this case, Don did not reliably report what Candace told him. In fact, I think they argued on the phone. That's from a different statement, though.
I believe Don made up the story.
Statements. Summer, very likely, in my opinion, based on the language, Summer very likely lived in jeopardy. In other words, ongoing risk of sexual abuse by Don. The language he uses tells us that it's normal for him. Whether it is from the video or whether from the language, Summer had a tragic life. Don spoke very quickly of her in the past tense, indicating a belief that she was dead or knowledge. I don't know. I'll still need more about this, but I trust the investigators are doing a good job with it. And these are public statements. These are not private statements. These are public statements we're looking at. Summer Wells did not have a good life. Any questions that I can take? Deb is asking, did sexual abuse contribute to her going missing? I don't know. It may contribute to the coordinating of both statements, mother and father. They have something on each other. It's definitely part of the life. Child Protective Services, I believe, were in and out of that house. I know people often look for someone to blame. They can only gather the evidence they can gather and present it to a judge. They are obligated, and this is a good thing, they are obligated to work out different types of services, try to mitigate the risk. Some parents become very adept at avoiding being interviewed and avoiding having their kids interviewed. And some will do the bare minimum of services, present well, pass a drug test, go out and celebrate with drugs. It is very difficult, very draining, and just like the professionals within law enforcement, the professionals in child protective services lose sleep also over what the plight of some of these children, what it's like for them. I don't know from the language. I know there's a couple of things that they've used that are very concerning, whether they have guilty knowledge of where she is. I always have a tendency to lean towards water in terms of hiding remains, but I don't know, or being buried. I think the dogs would pick it up. There's a lot of things about the case that are puzzling in the sense that the number of dogs that Chris encountered, if there was a stranger on the property, would not the dogs alert on that? They work in a pack.
Yes, they would have alerted.
The vehicle issue, these interviews, I mean, they're just horrendous. Are they lying to protect drug use? Are they lying about Summer? They're definitely lying. She's definitely lying about watching her, neglect, and he has me very concerned about sexual abuse of Summer. I also wondered, and this to answer another question, I think she's lying about why she cut the child's hair, why she shaved the child's head. A couple of possibilities, I don't know, but a couple of possibilities. Some mothers will be so afraid of their daughters being sexually abused that they deliberately try to make them look ugly. And whatever their perception of beauty and ugly is, they try to make them look ugly as protection. Some mothers will try to make them look ugly because they're in competition with their daughters. So I don't know what that's about, but I don't believe that they're telling the truth about the shaved head. Yeah, great point about the aggressive dogs when Chris approached. I mean, it's just natural. Dogs they feed off each other. Human nature, I study it, and I still don't know it. the depths of depravity and things that go wrong. The one we looked at that would be considered an embedded admission or embedded confession wasn't, because it was assigned to another reason. So it wasn't coming from his own language. It was close. Well, thank you, everyone. I apologize for some of the technical difficulties I've had. This was the
Okay. So, Peter Hyatt, that's his channel. He's very wise and he picks up and discerns a lot. I know this video's gone long and that wasn't even all of his video that I showed you. So that's why I recommend that you go watch it, because he had so much interesting things to say. Now listen, I know it's long, but you know, if you're folding laundry or having a cup of coffee in the morning, you can just sit and listen and not have to worry about even watching much. But I do believe, I just believe that this whole thing was a story that Don and Candace made up. And I believe Don made up the story because he's the boss of the family. You know, he does everything. He puts everything together for them. And he's been out talking to the media for the longest time. And Candace never even came out, Summer's mother. So I do believe that Don made up the story. And Don told Candace and Grandis and probably Hunter what was the story. There's no way that they all got the story exactly the same and down pat unless Don told them. So I do believe that, Don admitted that he was messing around with his stepsister. Okay. And he still, thinks it's okay and it wasn't wrong and he didn't do anything wrong. And that is a sure sign that he still continues on with it in his life, that he's still a molester, because he cannot take responsibility, and you have to take responsibility for your actions before you actually change. And so I truly believe that they did horrible things to Summer. And I believe that they locked her in that basement when they didn't like how she was acting. It also bothers me that Jody Sue said Andy would go over there all the time. Well, of course, drug addicts hang out with other drug addicts. So Andy was over there smoking weed or selling drugs or weed to Don and Candace. And that doesn't make it Jody Sue's fault that Andy was doing that. But anyways, the neighbor, Jody Sue, said in one of her videos that Andy would always pull up by that basement door. And Don really repeated and carried on, and so did Candace, about the door, the door, the door. And it's weird that Andy would go through the basement to go inside the house. That's not normal, because that's Summer's bedroom. And it's down in Candace's bedroom. And why would you want to go down there? Because remember, there's only a little hole to go downstairs. So I just think it's strange. That's all I'm saying. Everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but I do believe that Don, and I believe these experts are right, Peter Hyatt, Chris McDonough, all kinds of people, witnesses, I do believe that Don and Candace did something to their child, sold Summer, or abused her, and she died. So I know everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but in my eyes, in the public opinion, they are guilty, both in parents. So I hope that we will hear the grand jury meets. We want them to meet. We want them to bring charges. Listen, everybody, pray for those boys that Don and Candace's boys, not only that they'll be okay and do well, but that they will come out and talk, that they will expose what really happened in that house. And I pray for that all the time. I pray for Summer to be found, but pray for that those boys will come forward and tell the police everything and tell on their mom and dad. So, because that's what Orrin and Orson West, those boys out in California, those foster parents, Trezell and Jacqueline West, those boys, the other kids, told on their parents and told what happened and what they did. That the parents made them hurt the little boys and end their life. So I pray that Don and Candace's boys will start talking and tell everything and just tell it all. And it upsets me because I feel sorry for little Summer Wells, because I do believe she lived a terrible, terrible life. And she was always being hurt. She was always being abused and in danger. And no one can tell me otherwise. Prove me wrong. Don't prove me right. Don't prove me right. Prove me wrong. Show me that none of that happened, because I do believe that it did. But anyways, I'm sorry the video went so long. Like I said, I can't help it because his video went so long. But I love all of you. Thank you to my new subscribers, and God bless you all, and I will talk to you soon. Keep Summer's name out there, okay? Summer Moon, Utah Wells. All right. Good night, everyone.